We're very excited to have you here today, and I want to thank you all for coming on behalf of the family. We're excited to hear some stories, and we have some guests tonight that offered their time to honor Ron and celebrate Ron, and we're going to hear some really exciting stuff about Ron. As a family member, I don't know Ron other than from family, but today we have the mayor of Auburn to share with her stories about Ron and his activities in the community, and we have some legends of soccer that are going to share with you their friendship with Ron. And as we all know, Ron spent a lot of time with youth soccer. I understand that a championship cup team is here, and if you can just for a moment, the Firebirds can stand up. This was Ron's championship cup team, all from TJ, and they're all here today. I think 7 members of the team. So thank you for coming. Dawn, Ron's daughter, brought the ball. They all signed when they won, and it's here tonight, and they're all reminiscing about their signatures and what they wrote. So without further ado, I want to introduce the mayor of Auburn, Nancy Bacchus. She's going to talk about Ron, and we're going to start sharing our stories about Ron. And after that, we're going to show a little video presentation. So if you give a round of applause for Nancy.
Sitting over at that table with all of those soccer legends, and I will tell you, you are in for some fun stories. Goodness. Yes, you were. Pam, you didn't disappoint when you told me to be careful sitting at that table. So I have the honor of sharing with you some of Ron's life story, the formal side of the reading before we get to the fun stories. Hopefully you will appreciate some of the information about Ron. I think we all knew a piece of Ron. As you were saying, the family knows the family side, and some of us know the soccer side, some of us know the city side. Hopefully by the end of today, we all have a new appreciation and love for Ron and everything that he was. So he was born in 1945 as Ron Lloyd Copple, along with his 2 brothers, Jim and Bill, and 2 sisters, Amarie and Claudia. He grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. There, he attended Ruskin High School and played baseball. After graduating, Ron enlisted in the U.S. Navy, and he served his country in the Vietnam War. Like many other Vietnam War veterans, Ron did not like to talk much about his time and experience in that war, but he knew he was a veteran. His subtle comments, his interest in politics, and ear to the daily news, he displayed his love and his respect for his country that only another veteran could embody. He showed the same love, respect, and commitment in all the many other relationships and activities he was deeply involved with over the years. As an insurance agent, Ron worked for Mutual of Omaha and later started his own agency. As an agent for Mutual of Omaha, Ron won top-level awards and traveled all over the country and the world. He met Merlin Perkins several times. I'm looking out here, there are a few of us who know who Merlin Perkins is. There are some that are looking like, should I be impressed by that? You should be. We grew up watching Wild Kingdom on Sunday nights. Some of you are shaking your heads. Thank you for that. Explain it to the younger folks that are sitting around, please. When Ron left Mutual of Omaha to work independently, his focus was on helping others manage the medical maze known as Medicare. He worked hard and tirelessly to help hundreds of his clients sift through the details of medical and life insurance and to help them decide on insurance policies that match their medical and financial needs. As a volunteer for youth baseball and soccer, Ron was very involved as an umpire, official, or referee. he really loved to know the rules of sports, and he loved to share his time teaching our kids. As a soccer coach, he led one of his youth teams to the Washington State Association League's championship cup. Yeah, right? Ron was very involved at the administration levels of Washington State Youth Soccer Association, where he also won many awards related to his time and commitment to the organization and youth soccer, including his service as protest and appeals chairman. Doesn't that sound like a fun role? Only Ron. And he also organizing the soccer fair. Ron became president of Washington State Youth Soccer Association, serving in that capacity from 1999 to 2003. It's fair to say that Ron was deeply involved with youth soccer, and he earned recognition from not only the state, but with his work and time with the U.S. Youth Soccer, where he worked with Region 4 in their workshops and referee programs. FIFA has also recognized Ron's work. As many of you are well aware, we really could spend our entire day here celebrating and acknowledging Ron's work with youth soccer, but I'm going to leave that to the gentlemen over there at the table because they have got some fabulous stories to tell. So, moving on, amazingly, Ron had time to give not only to youth sports, but he was also involved with his community, particularly here in the city of Auburn. Ron was a member of the Auburn Chamber of Commerce, political supporter for campaigns, and served on the Planning Commission. I asked Judy Rowland, who's a very tenured and valued member of the Planning Commission and also a long-serving chair, to share with me her thoughts on Ron, and this is what she said. Ron Copple was a true gentleman, and working with him on the Planning Commission was a real pleasure. He was always positive, knowledgeable, well-prepared, and businesslike. Ron was friendly and interested in others on the commission, and it was evident his family was important to him. I was truly sorry to see him retire, as he was a great asset to the Planning Commission. Ron served on the Auburn Planning Commission for 10 years, and while he was a member of that commission, they recommended a major restructuring of the city's zoning code. This was only a year after Ron started in his first term, and his bold passion for the city was already shining brightly. The recommended changes were ultimately adopted by the city council. This ordinance affected changes that some might call a little geeky, but it was meant to make the city zoning code more efficient, user-friendly, and understandable, if there is such an ability. Ron did that. And now to accomplish that, it took a lot of extensive public process, and that included 3 joint meetings between the Planning Commission and the City Council. I remember because I was on the City Council at that time. And there was a lot of public hearings and things going on as well. And remember, this is a volunteer position that Ron was in. He wasn't getting paid for all of those hours. But Ron always believed that government shouldn't be so difficult and bureaucratic. I know that's a novel concept, but Ron believed it. He was passionate about the work because he loved his city and community so very much. He was never one to shy away from doing the work to make a positive difference. One more thing of note while he was on the commission, they recommended and the City Council approved the original ordinance authoring the Northeast Auburn Special Area Plan and the Auburn Gateway Planned Action, ordinance number 6382, codified as Auburn City Code 18.08. You don't recognize that? Doesn't just roll off your tongue? Well, this was a significant accomplishment for the redevelopment of the Valley Drive and Theater area. Some of you know where that is. That rolls off the tongue a little bit more easily than the other. But then in 2018, I received this. Dear Mayor, it has been truly an honor and a privilege to serve for the past 10 years on the City of Auburn's Planning Commission, and especially these past 4 years on your behalf, Mayor Backus. I have thoroughly enjoyed working alongside Chair Judy Rowland as well. However, I believe it is time to retire from this committee effective immediately and move on to other endeavors. I have thoroughly enjoyed the city staff support and encouragement, and I know they will continue to provide you the expertise you deserve. Thank you again for your past support, and I look forward to following your future activities for the growth of Auburn. Respectfully submitted, Ron Copple, Thursday, January 25th, 2018. That was not a resignation that I wanted to ever receive. But I understood. Ron had served 10 years in that role. He had done so with dignity, integrity, and passion for wanting to make his community better. That's a little bit about the formal side of Ron that I knew and loved, but I'd also like to share a glimpse of the type of man he was as my friend. I was blessed to have him as a friend and also a supporter of my desire to be mayor of our city. Ron and Pam were wonderful supporters and advisors for me. They would share words of encouragement and were always around to support. Our first campaign was challenging. The second one was even more so. Ron and Pam invited me to their beautiful home for a delicious lunch, tacos. I will always remember because Ron loved tacos. My daughter, that was always her choice for whenever you say, what would you like, tacos? So we did that one early spring day, and they provided strategy to help me make it through those times. I think the words of wisdom were steeped in soccer strategy, I have no doubt. And that kindness, I will tell you, will never be forgotten. And Ron's smile and his laugh, always a hint of mischief included in that sheer joy that he would share. I mean, look at the great photo of Ron that's all over here. It's a beautiful smile, but don't you just see a little bit of impish mischief in there? Yeah, just a tad, just maybe an ounce or so. It was always there, and a little giggle. He'd make some comment when you knew that you couldn't say anything in response to him. He loved that as well. And finally, as a friend, father, and husband, Ron also demonstrated his commitment with his love and support for his wife, for children, brothers, and sisters. We are here today to meet with Ron's family and share our stories with one another. His life was all about his relationships with those closest to him and the relationships he had with his extended family and friends. Ron had an enormous capacity to give his time, energy, and love. Ron always spoke respectfully and thoughtfully with others. He had a sharp eye and an even sharper mind. Whether you discussed today's news or yesterday's football game, Ron had something meaningful to contribute. He really loved to tease and joke with everyone, but it was never with malice. He showed his love and care for people in all walks of his life. He enjoyed keeping in contact with all of his family and friends on social media and loved those posts and devoted much time to maintaining those relationships. When Ron faced adversity, he did not run. He did not take the easiest path to avoid conflicts. He faced his challenges head-on and with honesty and with humility. Most importantly, Ron was not afraid to say he was wrong or to apologize. He was very open with his feelings and shared his heart. And this is what made him a great friend, father, husband, and community leader. We're here today to celebrate Ron Copple's time that he shared with each of us. We're going to miss him. We are here to celebrate his decency, his sincerity, and his kind soul. Let us celebrate the blessings of knowing and loving Ron, a great and caring man. Rest well, my friend. I've certainly earned it.
Thank you, Mayor. Ron has some big shoes for anybody to fill. So now we're going to show you a video that Tim Miller has put together with him. And it's just a series of photos. And I think you'll see the mischief come out and the relationships he shared with everyone. So sit back for 10 minutes and we'll get back to soccer.
Gonna set my heart at ease. Gonna make a sentimental journey to renew old memories. Got my bags, got my reservation. Spanish down, I could afford. Like Jack in wine.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing. Somewhere beyond the sea. So many nights I'd sit by my window, waiting for someone to sing me a song. So many dreams I kept deep inside me.
What's not funny?
But now you've come along, and you light up my life. You give me hope to carry on. You light up my days and fill my life. wish upon a star, wake up with those so far behind. Be where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you'll find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, and the dream that you did to oh why can't well, I see trees of green and red roses too. I'll watch them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Well, I see skies of blue, and I see clouds of white, and the brightness of thee. I like the dark, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. See friends shaking and singing, how do you do? They really sing, I love you. I hear babies cry and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up with the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drop, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. The dream that you did to why, oh why can't May the moon rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rain fall softly on your fields, and until we meet again, may you keep safe in the gentle, loving arms of God. For everything there is a season, a time for meeting, a time to say goodbye. In all things, God's near, always guiding your way. May the moon rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, upon your face. May the rain fall softly on your fields, and until we meet again. laughter, time for tears and pain. In all things, God is near, always guiding your way. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rain fall softly on your feet. And until we meet again, may you keep safe in the gentle, loving
Thank you, Tim. Third time I watched that. It's me every time. But next, I want to introduce you to a childhood hero of mine that happened to be a really good friend of Ron's as well. So we can have Bobby Howe come up. He's going to share some stories of Ron as a friend. And then we're going to ask you to share your stories if you have any you'd like to share. And if you don't want to do it publicly, we have the pens and the paper there, and we encourage you to write those down. Come on up, Bobby. Tell us your stories of Ron. I want to hear a new one. I've heard a lot already.
Good afternoon, everybody. Imagine following that.
Good luck.
I thought Queen was going to come out next. That was fantastic, absolutely. Also, I spoke to Pam at length yesterday. In fact, I said 2 words, but. And also, today, as soon as I came in the door, she said to me the same thing. Keep it clean. Well, there goes half the material, doesn't it? No. So dear Pam, and all your beautiful family, you've all shown an amazing strength and courage during the last few months. First, caring for, nursing, and ultimately living through the loss of a husband and a granddad. We love you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, may I add my own welcome to you to celebrate Ron's life, and as has been indicated, you'll have an opportunity to come up and say whatever you would like to say. And I'm sure a lot of you have some great stories about Ron and the family, and in both inside and outside soccer, obviously. How do Sherry and I, my wife Sherry and I, fit into Ron's life and Pam's life? I was essentially working part-time after the Sounders folded in 1993, but became available when Washington Youth Soccer was looking for a coaching director. And I jumped upon that opportunity as quickly as I possibly could, because nobody else was getting paid for coaching soccer in this state at that time. I thought, I'm out of a job, I could be out of the country soon, so do the job. So I was fortunate for the next 12 years that I had the opportunity to work for an organization that became so far ahead of the game in youth soccer in the United States. Understanding the soccer pyramid, that's the development from U6 through U18. Understanding age group player priorities. Managing priorities for clubs, associations and districts, and all the work that goes with that. You know, sometimes managing the managers is more difficult than managing the players and all the different personalities that were there. Communicating with states and in this region and within the United States, and developing a first-class referees program, an education program for referees. Absolutely fabulous. Ron was a very kind man and an understanding leader. He paid particular attention to all details of his roles at WSYSA, and as president, he had command of all the personalities in a state youth soccer association. He always provided sensible advice. Not only was he clearly in charge, but also he took care of business with a wonderful sense of humour. Ron was always approachable and helped me on many occasions, both inside and outside soccer. I could do with him helping me with Humana at the moment, it drove me crazy. However, for all his qualities, above all, he was a great friend, and he'll be missed. God bless you, Ron. Rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. At this time, we've got a mic. And if anybody would like to share a story they have of Ron, I encourage you to either come up here and talk from the podium, or I'll have Ava bring you the mic. Anybody's willing? Come on.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good afternoon, my name is Jim Hines. I live in Gig Harbor, and I spent 31 years working for the Mars Corporation candy company. And I started in 1987 in a sales role. And a couple years after that, the Snickers brand signed a 20-year contract to sponsor United States Youth Soccer. And my manager at the time, my district manager, said, "Hey, listen, this ain't my thing. I need one of you guys to sort of be the liaison to the Washington State Youth Soccer Association." And when I tell you this was not part of the job description, that would be the understatement of the year. And I said, "What the heck, I'll do it. I'll do it." So I walked into the Washington State Youth Soccer Association offices in Tukwila and met, I think it was Pam and Ron at the same time. If it wasn't at the same time, it was very close. And I can't tell you, I spent 31 years at Mars, and very little of it had anything to do with soccer. And almost all of it had to do with meeting numbers and making goals. And I was telling Pam recently, it was truly one of the highlights of my 31-year career at Mars, was to work with these people and to go to soccer fairs and to kick out ceremonial first balls at Sparks Stadium, and especially to hand out medals to kids. And I learned, about service over self from Pam and Ron, to be a mentor and to be around kids like these girls who are here today. Oh, what a great story. It's such a beautiful thing. And I was telling Pam, I seriously, I think of my 31 years at Mars, and I got to do a lot of really cool stuff. Ride in the number 18 car with Kyle Busch in the passenger seat, and go to races and do all this other stuff. And, the Snickers brand was part of the NFL and all this stuff. One of the greatest highlights of my life was to be involved in youth soccer, and it was because of Pam and Ron. And I remember the one time I walked into the office in Tukwila and Ron was there. And of course, the first few times I went there, I brought Snickers. And I had a garage full of Snickers, trust me. The one time I showed up without any, Ron looked at me with this frown on his face and he goes, "Where are the Snickers?" And I said, "Dude, like, I can't walk in here without any." And he pushed me on the shoulder and he goes, I'm kidding, it's okay." But, so the few fun-sized stickers that are on your tables today are in memory of my friend and all the great things that they provided to me, Pam and Ron, and the incredible experiences I had with kids and youth soccer. So thank you very much. This Snickers is for you, Ron, I promise.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I'll stand up there. And my good friend.
This is Ronnie Jr., for those that don't know.
Hi, everybody. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Ron Copple Jr. I'd like just a minute to speak about my dad. As I watch this clip, it was the first time I'd seen it. So I thought you guys ought to know that he wasn't just this soccer dude. He wasn't just a coach. He wasn't all these other things we're seeing tonight. But he still had time to be my dad. And he named me after him. For those of you who don't know me, my wife and I run a horse training business down in Rochester, Washington. Completely different kind of job than anybody else in this room, right? And we're successful at that. And I'm independent, hardworking, no nonsense, integrity, whatever all those things that you need to be self-employed and successful in a business that's like selling jet boats, right? You don't really need a horse trainer, do you? But somehow I've been able to raise a family and carry on. Well, that means that I miss out on lots of family things. But as close as he was with the family, you see him in pictures there with his adopted children, Pam's children, that he took on as his own. No questions asked. As much as he took on Trevor when he learned about him, and as much as he took all that in, he raised me to go out there and be independent and take on the world and just do what you got to do, brother. Go. And he never made me feel guilty about it. My memories of my dad that I never forget, and I'm 55. And the things that all carry with me is that my dad used to have season tickets to the Seahawks in the Kingdom. Anybody been there? Raise your arm if you've been to the Kingdom. Okay. All right. See. Yeah, I'm getting to that. So, yeah, Dave Craig. Forget about that. Steve Largent, you kidding me? Small little white guy? Come on now. So I got to be there and yell and chant with my dad, "Goodbye, Elway." For those of you who know what that means, when they get a sound. Kenny Easley's taking him down. You guys know what I'm talking about. But I was young, and he had great seats. But I also was traumatized, because the bathrooms there were a river of, you know what I mean. You're 9 years old. Picture that, standing between grown men, shoulder to shoulder, trying to go to the bathroom. Anyone that's been there knows what I'm talking about, and I still get counseling for that today. Rough deal. The fact that I can remember that, and there's some people down their heads knows that I'm telling the truth, guys. It's bad. I'm so glad urinals now have walls. So once I got past that, my dad introduced me to soccer. I was 5. The fields were huge. Didn't have what they have now. There's some guys here I played with. There's some guys that I know. We had a great time. My dad jumped in with open arms. He sponsored baseball. He sponsored whatever he could to give me the opportunity to be a normal kid, to have fun, to be the best I could be. I was not very big. You know, I wasn't very fast. I wasn't great at anything. But I tried, and I tried, and he kept saying, let's go, let's go. And he did the same thing with my sister, and he did the same thing with anyone else, and that just grew into what you see on here. But it started with us kids. Where I am today is because he continued that, and rather than push me one direction or the other, he was an insurance agent for the Northwest Junior Rodeo Association. I don't know if anybody knew that, but it's kind of interesting, isn't it? So he said, how would you like to try that? So there I am bull riding at 14 years old, riding bareback horses. Anybody know that? Huh? Guess who was in the arena taking pictures while I was getting bucked off throwing the mud? My dad. I remember coming to my uncle's church in Randall, all taking off our hats after rodeo. My dad's is that reason. You get that? It wasn't you had to be soccer, or you had to be this, or you had to be that. So obviously that led to where I am now, yes? So, my dad's self-employed. Understand that? You sell insurance, you're self-employed. Not an easy gig. How many self-employed people are here in the house tonight? Give me your hand up. Look at that. You can count them on two hands. That's how hard it is. So my dad was self-employed. I decided I was going to now, in my mid-20s, take on horse training full-time. And I left with his go get it. So about 6 months into it, I realized, wow, this is hard. People are lying, I can't make any money. I called him, and I would call him often. Not that I listened to his advice, but I just wanted to hear it. He did raise me that way. If you met him, you know what I mean. So I called him, and he said, you know what, come home. Going tiring, come home. Take care of yourself. No reason to struggle so hard. That was the love of a father talking to me. Come home. Come home. I hung up at the phone with him, and I was so motivated to never come home because here was a man that was self-employed. And that made me continue on, and that's where I am today. I look good for 55, right? Huh? Give me some, yeah?
You look good for 45.
I look good for 45. I like this guy a lot.
55 is the new 54, by the way.
I'm buying some Snickers tonight, so. But I just wanted folks to know the other side that you wouldn't possibly know. Most of the folks in here wouldn't possibly know those things. I am where I am today, and a great deal to do with Ron Copple Sr. There's no question about that. I wouldn't be the horse trainer I am today, and then living the life that I'm living without the things that he did to start that. And he had no idea. But he made time to do that. He made time to go to my rodeos when he was coaching the Firebirds. He made time to be in the arena in the mud and the dirt taking a picture of his son getting bucked off and getting trampled and scaring the bejesus out of him, and me going, I can't wait to do it again. He's like, what the have I done? But he never held me back from doing that. So my memories forever will be going to watch the Seahawks. And even later in life, when his body was saying enough, and I'd come to visit, because I would go, because of him, I would go to the Scottsdale Horse Show down in Arizona every year in February. And they had moved to Arizona. Good idea. So I'd make sure that I made time. And one time he came to the horse show, and there was a picture on here of him standing in front of my stalls, and him and I together both had ball caps with our thumbs up. And he was wearing a Copple Show Horses vest. And I remember seeing that and looking back at the first time I had an official Copple Show Horses, Ron Copple Training Stables jacket, you know? It's like you're self-employed, and finally, I got a jacket. Check this stuff out. And I got him one. And it was kind of weird, because I gave him the jacket with the same size, and they both had the same first name. It was weird stuff, guys. Well, which jacket's yours? I don't really know. But I was so proud, and you know what? He was so proud. He was so proud. He was so proud of me when he went to the horse show, and he watched what I did. There's 2,000 horses there. The place is nuts. If you've ever been in Westfield, it's crazy. And I couldn't wait to show him my best horse that I had. It's Black's Diet. $200,000 horse. I don't own the horse, but I mean, this is the horse I trained. And he could care less about like the horse. It was just, look what you're doing, look at you, the joy in your face, look how happy you are, look at you in your element. And he beamed with pride. We went back there and he spent, he was tired, the sun was beating on him, but he stayed there because he was so proud. He came to our open house. We got pictures together. He was so proud. He was listening to all my clients come and talk to him. So you're Ron Singer. They hadn't met him. He beamed with pride. I saw that. And anybody that has a father knows how good that feels when you see your dad proud of something you created, you did, and they're so beaming proud. So at the end of his days, and this is more towards my family, but I had seen some other siblings of mine and other people pass the way he was going to pass. And I want you people to know that I didn't come back down to Arizona because I wanted to remember him the way I remembered him. And all I have is this picture in my head of others that I had seen pass at the end of the day the way God chose to take my father. And I didn't want that vision in my head anymore. I didn't want to live the rest of my life with that last picture in my head. I wanted the last picture to be with him and I arguing about the Seahawks. Okay, and what was going on. So when I'd go to visit him towards these end days, and I'd come in after the horse show, tired, worn out, anxious to see him. We'd have dinner, Pam, my dad and I, or last time just me. Whenever I was there with him, and whenever we were together, we never stopped talking. So my lesson here is never stop talking when you're together. Because it was wonderful. When I see you people and how you reacted and you come in here and sorry for your loss, I didn't lose anything. It's right here. I got him right here. And I have the last picture that I chose to have in my memory bank for the rest of my life. I'll miss my dad. I know a lot of you will too, but I'll miss him a lot. Because even though I didn't get to see him a lot in the last 5 years, when I did, I saw him a lot right then. Thank you for coming. I didn't know what to expect today. But thank you. Thank you, all of you, for coming and supporting my family. I appreciate it very much.
Play that again.
Play that again. All right, who wants to follow that?
Good luck.
Jim, do you want to come up or do you want? Next, Jim Copple. This is Ron's little brother.
Well, I went through a variety of responses thinking about this event today, whether to say anything, then I had all kinds of things to say. And I narrowed it down based upon a conversation I had with our other brother yesterday. We have a younger brother who's 62 years old, who lives in a group home, who's mentally and physically disabled. And so we wanted to hear some stories. And I have all kinds of stories. As being a younger brother to Ron, I have our competition, I have our fights, I have our times of great celebration. At the time that he lent me $1,500 to publish one of my books, and to pay him back and to give him $1 for every book he sold, I think he got $25. But yesterday, Bill, who's mentally and physically disabled, who has seizures ever since he was about 8 years of age. And he's not very functional. He's not with us often. But as we talked to him yesterday, I asked him the question, I said, Bill, what's one of your memories of Ron? And he halted, his faulting speech, wondering if he was in a seizure. He looked at us and he said, I remember when he came back. He said, yeah. Bill was only 5 or 6 years old. And Ron came home from the war in Vietnam, and he came back. And Bill remembers when he came back, what it meant to him. And he talked to us about what it meant for Ron to come back into his life. For a number of years, Ron and Pam were responsible for taking care of Bill after my mother passed away, even before my mother passed away. Stewarded him through the rest of his life, put him in a group home, and he was a pain in the ass in so many different ways. But the one memory that Bill had was that he came back. And that's my memory and my experience. The calls that he would often make to me when he was working in the garage or in his woodshed, or I would call him, we would celebrate things together, or he would lend me the money, or he would talk to me because I do wild and crazy things. I'm a sailor and I've fallen off a sailboat a couple of times in the middle of the ocean, and he would say, stop, just stop. But Ron he always had our back, for the whole family. He cared about us, he was engaged. But for my 62-year-old brother, who was often ignored, the memory that he had was of a sailor coming home from the Vietnam War, and he celebrated the fact that he came back. That's the brother I want to remember, and that's the brother I celebrate. Thanks for being here. On behalf of my siblings, our family, we rejoice. This isn't a surprise to us. We knew who he was. We knew the celebrations that he had. We knew the recognition that he had. We knew that he was significant and important, and that he made contributions to people's lives. When I stop and think about his youth soccer involvement, he and Pam's involvement, I worked with him on a project a number of years ago with the United States Youth Soccer Association on a drug prevention program. They were engaged because those are the kind of people they are. They're enfleshed in a community. You know something, for me anyway, I've often learned love of the love that I've received. And while we might disagree, we might have our issues, one thing I have to say at the end of the day, we agreed on politics. This is Jim Copple, Ron's younger brother.
Anybody else? From the back. Anybody? Oh, Amory, please. Yeah. This is Amory. This is Ron's little sister.
Ronnie was my oldest brother, and I'm going to call him Ronnie sometimes, or Ron, whatever. I have a few memories about him, and two of them right away are, I was younger, I was terrified of the water. And we'd go on vacation and stay in motels where there were swimming pools, and Ron was a fish. And I would be clinging to the side of the swimming pool, and Ronnie would be swimming underneath the water, and if I did not see him, he'd take my legs right out from underneath me and just laugh and laugh. Another time we were at a swimming pool on vacation, probably the same one, and I got brave enough to get on an air mattress. And I got on the air mattress. I'm sitting on this air mattress and holding onto the side, and this is about the 3 or 4 foot level of the swimming pool. He got it in his head to push me to the 12-foot end. And there I was, stuck on this air mattress. And he's laughing, jump off, learn to swim. No, I'm not gonna do it. When I was in the 7th grade, we lived in Ruskin Heights, and I was in a car, an abandoned car in the backyard of a neighbor's house with a boy named Larry. And we were listening to the radio, and just kind of minding our own business and whatever. And
That doesn't sound like minding your own business.
And my sister Claudia comes running up, Avery, Ronnie's coming, Ronnie's coming. Larry's sister Alice comes running up, Avery, Ronnie's coming. Get out of the car, get out of the car. And I went, just a minute, he's not my boss. I don't have to get out of the car. My next thought was, get out of the car. So I got out of the car, went around the house to the front yard, stood in the street of this suburb of Kansas City. Here comes Ronnie, marching up the middle of the street, absolutely deliberately, not running, just pointed my direction, coming up the street. I'm thinking to myself, this is it, I'm toast, this is not going to be a good thing. Comes up the street, makes eye contact with me and says, I'll talk to you in a minute. Goes over to Larry. I don't know what he said to Larry. There was no yelling. I just know that Larry never asked me to sit in the car with him again. So then he comes back to me, he said, we're walking home. So we go back down the middle of the street. He doesn't say a word. I'm thinking, this is so bad. What's going to happen? This is just not going to be good. He looked straight ahead and he said, you are a nice girl, and nice girls don't sit in cars with boys like that. And I looked at him and he said, you are a nice girl, and nice girls don't sit in cars with boys like that. You will always be a nice girl. I remember that as a 71-year-old woman. You will always be a nice girl. Ron was my protector then. Ron is my dear oldest brother. And I have to tell you, when we began to realize that his time was coming, I went to my guidebook that I go to when times are hard, and that's God's Word. And I read in the book of John, where Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says, let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself. That where I am, there you may be also. Jesus built a mansion for Ronnie. Can you imagine what that looks like? It's got an indoor and outdoor soccer stadium, don't you think? And they're playing. People are having a great time. He might be the ref. He might have a whistle. You can bet he's blowing it. I don't know much about soccer, but there's probably a penalty flag, right? Or maybe not, because it's heaven, and everybody's playing beautifully, and everybody's winning, and it's a good thing. And in another part of his mansion, he's got a woodworking shop, and he's got every tool he could ever imagine. 30 of them, Pam. 30 of each one of those tools. And he's making wonderful things. He made a beautiful clock for us for our 25th wedding anniversary. He's doing great things, and he's giving them away to anybody in heaven he wants to. He's meeting mom and dad and all those wonderful, glorious people that you and I know that he knows. He's seeing them today, and he's having a great time with them. That brings me comfort. That brings me joy. I miss my brother. I love my brother. He will always be with me.
Thank you, Mary, for sharing that. Anybody else have a nice story, funny story, a memory, a vision of Ron they'd like to share with us?
I am Dick Woman. Just saw a couple of posts recently Pam put up of Ron in the referee uniform. And it triggered my own memories. I think it was 84 that we hosted the regionals and nationals, and Ron was in charge of the US. And that's when I first met him and got to know him a little bit more. And we shared some referee stories over the years. And one in particular stuck with me. He was talking about difficult games that we all have experienced as referees, never mind the poor players subject to us. But he was telling that some of the teams he would see repeatedly, he would try and change his appearance. Just little things, combing his hair differently, whatever. And then he was active on the, I believe it was Federal Way Board. And he said, and a lot of you people remember Ron's laugh. I mean, it was just unique. And the picture that was up to begin with, you could see the glint in his eyes with the humor. But he said these people would call him up and complain about the referee, and he would string them along. And they never realized Ron was the ref. And we had, over the years, some good laughs on some of those games that we both had difficulty with. Thank you.
My name is John McLean. I have to thank Pam and Ron for fostering my involvement in Washington State Youth Soccer. From the get-go, I recognized that Pam and Ron were actually meant for each other, and I'm so happy they were able to share their lives up to this point. So anyway, anybody know Facebook? As my son would say, Facebook's only for old people. But it's through Facebook that Ron and Pam and I conversed and kind of reconnected after I got my second life after soccer. So anyway, Facebook, Ron, a lot of you may not know Ron in the last few years, but he loved to straighten people out, especially half the state of Arizona. And but who's counting, right? But half the state of Arizona. I'll let you decide which half he tended to rile. But that I appreciate his honesty and his. He was always grounded and thoughtful and called out hypocrisy when he saw it. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Ron. Great people.
Hi, I'm Bill Lewis. Most of you probably don't know me. You do. Ron taught a lot of us a lot of things. The mayor mentioned Ron ran for president and won 4 years as president. Physics teaches us for every action, there's a reaction. I'm the guy he beat. And the better man won. Time goes on, and the first decision Ron had to make, and I forget what it was something fairly trivial, but it was fairly diametrically opposed to our rules. But it was the right thing to do, and that was Ron. Don't do what's technically correct if it's not the right thing to do. And he did. And we'll miss him. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Who'd like to share? Jessica probably traveled the furthest to join us today. Thank you for being here.
I'm Jessica Drake. I'm Jim's daughter. I'm Ron's niece. I wasn't going to speak, but those two gentlemen just spoke about Ron as a referee. And Ron is a guy who was a little bit riled up at the end, and I knew I had to tell this story. My kids play soccer. And as parents know who have kids who play soccer, we're the worst part of soccer. We ruin it for everyone. For the refs, for the kids, and for the coaches. We have opinions and we share them a little too much. I might have had a day like that. I had a bad day like that. And I got an email entitled The Jessica Drake Incident, which if you know the Copples, fits perfectly, right? It was towards the end of Ron's life, and I wasn't sure it was appropriate for me to call him at this time and tell him I needed a little help because I was an incident. But I did. And he answered, and Pam answered too, and I told them what I had done about that dear, dear ref that got in my child's way and every child's way, and how angry I was. And now I was an incident. And what was I going to do? Because I didn't really want to go back to my kids' soccer games. I felt like I had, the ability to improve myself and just cheer him on. Though they were doubtful at first when we talked. And so they coached me. They told me about policy. They asked where he was connected to and what this league did and who they were under. And they gave me all kinds of language, and they were wonderful, but particularly Ron. He kept reminding me who I was And I'd gotten in trouble that day because I was defending a kid who didn't get the help he needed. And he repeatedly told me how to handle the situation. I repeated it a couple times, and Pam gave me some policy and followed up with email. But when we were getting off the phone, he said, don't forget, when you go into that meeting, you know who you are, and you are an incident, and you've got this. I ended that meeting. I'm still going to those games, and they invited me on their board. Which I figure is a direct result of my own Quran and that coaching and that conversation. So I'm happy to be a couple. I'm happy to be a part of an incident in all of the family stories. And I'm grateful for the lessons he passes on in that moment, in that 5 minutes. And I just had to tell it after the referee story, because I was like, well, I might have been that guy.
Thanks for sharing that. Next. Way in the back.
Hi, my name's Dave Schumacher. I was very fortunate to be coaching director after Bobby. I think it was 96, and for 13 years. And for Bobby, I think it was Jim Gable. So I followed in some great footsteps. But Ron was the president when I was there for, I think Ron was 99 through 2003. I met Pam during the seminary days and did some camps for her daughter, spent a few nights on the couch, all that. But the thing that I wanted to mention is the legacy, I think, that Ron and even some of the board members here, and that was small-sided games. And I was on my, it's amazing what you can find on Google. But I met with Ron many, many hours, because at that point in time, small-sided games was unheard of. And so through Ron's encouragement, we actually were one of the first states to get small-sided games. And he said, Dave, don't ever use the word mandate. But that's what we did. But it's actually 20 years now, because I looked at, went in 2002, took 5 years. So if you think of all the kids that have benefited in the last 20 years because of the leadership that Ron showed and the encouragement to me, and plus I wouldn't be comfortable even with a microphone in my hand if you didn't make me get up in front of everybody in soccer field for all those years and ran the ball. So yeah, Ron was a great mentor. As a young coaching director, he really allowed me to learn, and I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you, Dave. Well, back here. Anybody back here? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robin Willett. I'm here in Auburn, and I first had the pleasure and honor of meeting Ron when I worked at a community blood bank, and our company joined the Chamber of Commerce. Ron was one of the very few first people that came up to me, made me feel very, very welcome and inviting. And as the years have progressed, I had worked with the blood bank for 13 years before I moved on to over the Tree House, which is a Ronald McDonald house where I worked from. But through the years, Ron and I became very good friends, and the different stories, the different memories, the competition of the ambassador of the month that we would have. And Ron was a very, once you were his friend, I've heard it so many times today, he always had your back. He always, always had your back. And he would get so very angry and upset. Sometimes my director was not quite so nice. And he would get very angry if we were talking, and I'd say, you know, I kind of had a bad day, I'm having this. And he, in Ron's tone, would always come up, well, you know, I've got your back. Anybody that crosses you would do all of this. One day we were at a chamber luncheon, and my director came with us, and actually it was right here in this room. And we were sitting there, and Ron's sense of humor was sitting there talking and working for the blood bank. I was not one of the famous people in the community. We mentioned blood bank, and people would run, they shot, oh, I'm not donating blood or whatever. But Ron's sense of humor, he turns to me, and out of the tip of his tongue, he turns and he says, well, how's my blood-sucking leech today? I just kind of stood there for a minute, kind of laughed, and I thought, oh, that's kind of funny. And my director kind of talking after, we get back. So Ron had over kind of heard that conversation. We go back to the office at the done one day. Ron sends me a private text on Facebook. So, how did it go? And I said, well, he kind of didn't really appreciate the sense of humor, but everybody else in the room did. And I became in the community known as the community blood-sucking leech, endearingly and in the terms. And there was also another chamber event. We were sitting there at one of the ambassador months, and one of the last famous images, and this was many years ago, don't know why this particular meeting, but the person was talking about, I don't know, she just had pencils on the table. She asked us all to put pencils into our mouth, and it was maybe trying to practice to smile, to talk, I don't know what it was. Ron and I are sitting across from each other at this meeting, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and so we're all adults. There's probably 12, 13 of us in this room, and we all look probably pretty silly with pencils in our mouth like first graders. And the lady says, now I want you to practice reciting, and please all together in unison say the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, I don't know if you've all ever had a pen or pencil in your mouth trying to say that, but it is very difficult. And as we're all saying it, we're all kind of slobbering and drooling and getting our napkins, wiping our faces and stuff. And we're just kind of busting guts. So those are two of the funny incidents that I do remember. But I do have to thank my dear friend. Through the course of this, at the end of his life, I was having a very difficult time dealing with passing of my dad back in February. And through that, with all of Ron's illness, he was always making sure that I was okay. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Offering words of encouragement. My mom's still alive, so this is the first thing I've ever had to kind of go through as a real close daughter. And living out of state, it was very hard. Made lots and lots of trips out to Arizona where I grew up. And so when that happened, and then when we had that celebration of life in this May, I had made some comment and he knew that it was there. He reached out to me. And again, putting his illness aside, he was always making sure that I was okay. So I want to thank him for being a true friend and always watching out and caring for everybody.
She reminded me, the pens and the cards, I don't want to have to pick them up. They're for you to take home. So please, a pen and a card with you. Jessie reminded me, she reminded me, my job is done. Okay.
Hi. I'm Uncle Ron's niece, and my mom is Claudia, his younger sister. And just one of the memories that I want to share with everybody was that when my grandma was alive, Uncle Ron's mom, Grandma Grace, we always used to get together every Christmas for the Copple family Christmas. And as lots of people here can attest to, it was always a great time. A time with lots of laughter and lots of jokes and lots of memories. And my mom used to think pigtails were the cutest thing ever. So many times she would put my hair in pigtails. Well, Uncle Ron seemed to think pulling my pigtails was the funnest thing ever. And I remember as a little girl, I would run and I would hide because I knew he was going to come and get me and get my pigtails and pull them out. And when he'd catch me by the pigtail, and then I couldn't get away, he would grab my arm and do those Indian rugworms on your arm. And he was ornery. He was ornery. And as a little 5 and 6-year-old, he was scary. I remember. And I think that his orneriness is part of what made me tough, because I don't take crap from people. And I had to fight back as a little 5 and 6-year-old to my Uncle Ron, who was a lot bigger and a lot stronger than me. And so I just, we miss him. We all miss him very much. And he was a great man, and we love him.
Thank you.
So I'm Bob Russell, my wife, Ron's younger sister. Just a couple things. I was the guy who, some 6, 7 years after She was told not to get in the back of the car. She was able to get in the back of the car.
Good job. Good job. Good job.
And Ron was good with it. This is all right. A few years later, when we got married, it was Ron and my sister and their spouses who got into our apartment that Amory had not yet had a chance to live in, but I was living in it. And they short-sheeted beds. They put saran wrap over the toilet seats. They'd had a few drinks before they did these things, but they had a great time. Cornflakes under the sheets that were short-sheeted, all these things, and Ron loved us, right? Yeah. But here's the other part. Just last year, Amory and I moved after retiring from 40-some years as pastor. And one day we went to this restaurant up in Covington. We were inside the restaurant and there were these 4 older gentlemen sitting at a table. And they were obviously people involved in city government in Auburn. They were talking about things, about what was happening, about the mayor. It was all good, just so I'd say that. And as we sat there in the restaurant and listened to them, I said to my wife, I wonder if they remember Ron Copple. And so we were getting up, they were still talking. If any of you are in the room, you were still talking. And we went up to them and we said, we have a weird question maybe. Do you know Ron Copple? And all 4 of them said, yes. Do you know him? And so Amory introduced herself as Ron's sister, and we talked about Ron. And that impressed me, that these 4 guys in a restaurant in Covington would be willing to do that about him. And that just reminded me of the kind of guy he was. He did short sheets and put cornflakes under, but he was also just a
Thank you, Bob.
Anybody else? All right, well, I want to introduce our last guest. Again, another childhood hero of mine, because like Ronnie and I, we're both soccer players, you soccer players coming out of that age, but another legend of soccer, Cliff McGrath. We'll give our closing statements, and again, I want to encourage you all to write down your stories, share them with us. Want this or that?
I'll look at that.
Okay.
So there's a little housekeeping I have to do before we close this off. It's kind of like the preacher who said, before I speak to you, I'd like to say something. That's a humor thing if you're still listening. So the housekeeping has to do with my dress. I spend my life in sweats because I put on clinics, and yesterday I spent about 7 years at Starfire as the overseer for rules, having been a coach for several years, and then the executive director of the National Referees for 5 years. They haul me in so that I can point out things that they might not be doing. Now, Linda Veely, who is my heroine, and her husband, of course, a great pair of people that I had the pleasure of uniting at one point in time, because there is a pastoral element to my history. When I was coaching in Boston, there was a seminary 200 yards out the back door, and over 6 years I took every course in the seminary except Hebrew, which is spaghetti backwards, so if I were still there, it would be kind of read something backwards. And that's no slam on anybody here that might be Hebrew or Jewish. But nonetheless, knowing that this was going to be one of these formal affairs, and having been part of several eulogies and several memorials, I thought, well, why don't I get something out that actually, this is a tuxedo I actually found in my closet, and I put a cummerbund on, so I have a cummerbund, which I don't know how to spell. But, and then the hat is because I had almost scalped myself playing golf and slipped on a piece of mud getting into the cart. And so I didn't want you to have to sit here and say, my, what a terrible looking head that is. Bad enough because over here on the left hand, where there's supposed to be 5 digits, is the finest set of nubs you'll ever see. And the only reason I tell you that is because I spoke to a women's association in Pittsburgh one time and forgot to tell them about the nub. And about 2 sentences in, I said, and furthermore, and a woman in the front row said, he's not all there. So I kind of have to do that sort of thing and let you know that that there's a piece to what I'm going to do right now that has to do with something I'm going to say in a minute, but I need to accent what several people have said about Ron's wisdom and how he impacted life. And we're noted for having won a few national championships and a few soccer games over the years. But there was a spell when I had been the keynote speaker for Pam and Ron during their soccer fair back in the turn of the century. That sounds old, but it was like 20 years ago. I love the 55-year-old Ronnie Jr. My goodness, he left. Of course, he's out riding a bull someplace. For a guy to look that good, and the toupee is probably the best fitting one in all. When he said he's 55, I just sat there and hit myself in the face several times. It's unbelievable that he could be 55. He looks about 19 or so. But in any event, I'll fast forward this thing to tell you that I called Ron because we were having a spell at coaching. And even though I've been noted to help a lot of other coaches, I knew he was a great coach, as is Pam. It's a duo, come together. And I told him what it was, and he kind of just stared at me for a few minutes and then said in his wise way, he said, you know, if at first you don't succeed, maybe you should try something else. You know, like catching bullets or something like that. But I was trying to figure out what exactly that meant when he then said, in his own tweakish way, and I'm glad he's wearing a hat too, he said, you never want to be afraid to try something because you'll, and to fail at it, because you encourage the guy that isn't trying. And I didn't know what that meant. And while I was still staring at him, he said, you know, no man's completely useless. He could always serve as a bad example.
That's fantastic.
So with that, I want to tell you that I did prepare a few things here. It's a matter of about 3 minutes and 47 seconds. If you want to start the timer, which Frank McDonald, my hero over there at the mayor's table, by the way, Mayor, that was incredible. Unity, phenomenal. So this is a warning. Means my comments today will read, and it's better to be read, not said, to avoid rambling and taking more than the 3 minutes and 47 seconds I allowed for this tribute. I had a great mother who died 1,000 times raising my older brother and me by herself. Due to the many harrowing experiences we provided her, the least of which was not the day an 8-year-old stuck a match into a detonator cap and parted with 2 fingers and a thumb. She went to heaven early. Further, I never met my dad, a Detroit police officer, until I was 15 years old, when he came to claim me from the jaws of reform school. I stayed with him the required 1 year, but from that time on, I searched for a man and woman who I would dream could be my mom and dad. By the way, this voice is failing because I spent 10 hours yesterday at Starfish as the overseer for referees, and I think I need more than water.
Anyway, I would dream they could be my mom and dad. Presto change. Along came Ron and Pam Copple, who was co-presidents of Washington Youth Soccer and the Soccer Fair, invited me to be the keynote speaker at the association's annual fair 20 years ago. The relationship has never changed, even though I have them beat by 20 to 30 years. Dad went on ahead, but Mom is here. And Mom, this was for you too. Because I've always called them Mom and Dad, and they've called me son. So I was tempted to say the 5 kids need to stand up so that I can see who you are and let you know I'm your brother. But thanks for letting me share in this family. To be clear, the Bible says it is appointed for all of us once to die. Ron, Dad, did not die. He just kept his appointment, which we all will surely do in time. In the past 2 years, I've provided eulogies for 6 different people. And in each case, I spent a lot of time meditating on one word that would sum them up. In Dad's case, there are many words: stable, steady, strong, faithful, organized, dependable, and more. We've already heard, and if anybody was taking notes, the list goes on. But if there's one tribute that says it all, it came from Sam Keene in his monumental book, Fire in the Belly, the theme of which is becoming a man. He had Daddy Ron in mind when he wrote how to take the measure of a man and a woman in a number of ways. He offers that the way each of us defines our sense of ideal manhood and womanhood is by establishing a kind of inner hall of fame where we applaud heroes and heroines of the moment, and a hall of exemplars where we enshrine those ideal men and women who embody our highest, most universal values. Keene further elaborates that these halls are like halls of mirrors, which gives us a glimpse of some aspect of ourselves. They may contain people whose names are in the news, men and women we admire because they are beautiful, powerful, talented, smart, wise, or compassionate. But they also may contain a more intimate group of friends, parents, teachers, and lovers who have enriched our lives with their special gifts of care, insight, and understanding. Sometimes these heroes and heroines have been elevated to the position of highest honor by a consensus of the ages. They are not merely heroes of the moment, but are the pathfinders and definers of the human condition, the spiritual elite who reveal some aspect of the human promise. And unlike average to good men and women, these giants among us are not captive to the values and visions of their own narrow time and place. Rather, they are heralds of things to come, citizens of both the present and the future. Their lives are the strongest evidence that human beings are spiritual creatures who are able to transcend the conditioning of both biology and culture. That, my dear friends, is what my dad, Ron Copple, was all about, and Mom. And because he really did not die, we will continue to celebrate the physical time he was with us, the memories of his smile, his wise sayings, the sometimes corny jokes, and yet always the way he loved Mom, his family, and the rest of us. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you and praise you for allowing our friend and mentor to share his wisdom and joy for his brief time on this earth. May we long remember the good times and the values he imparted to us by how he lived. Comfort Pam and his larger-than-life family gathered here today. May we who are left behind continue to preserve and protect his legacy of steadfast love and take care to share the insights about life that he so selflessly bequeathed to all who knew him. We now commit him to your everlasting arms. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And all the people said? Amen. So that kind of ends it. I've been asked to say, enjoy yourself, but Eric will finish it off as he so eloquently done already. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Cliff. We're going to take the flowers over here on our right. We're going to set them up on the door, and we encourage you, if you'd like, to take one of those with you. On behalf of the family, I want to give a special thanks to everyone that came, spent their time with us today, that shared their story. I want to give a special thanks to Mary, Marcus, Bobby, Cliff, John, Connie Bivens, and Mr. Hines. And Denise Jason for providing dessert. There's plenty of desserts still up here if you'd like to take one to go. Ronnie, Dawn, Trevor, Carrie, Jesse. Those were my childhood heroes that I heard from today. But your dad, he's my hero. I love him very much and miss him, as we all were. I really enjoyed hearing the stories in the celebration we had today. Please, again, write down your stories if you haven't. Come up, give us a hug, and take a flower. It's so great to see you all. Thank you.
Jerry. He's busy. Yeah, we have to have you over. Yeah.